This is a segment that I wanted to do for people because I have 16 movies with me that I consider to be buried treasures because they're all amazing and probably hardly anybody in the world even knows that they exist. Well, some of them were popular like when they came out, but since then they've faded into obscurity. And if there's like hipsters who say, you know, oh, these are not buried treasures, everybody knows about those, well, you know, then this video is not for them, so you can fuck off. But for the people who wouldn't know about these, which I think are most common people, I would like for them to be, like, put out there to look for. Starting with, this is from the mid-90s. 98, that's not the mid-90s. But it's
late 90s.
It's a Mark Wahlberg. It's an action movie with Mark Wahlberg called The Big Hit, which I actually purchased this out of the $5 bin at Walmart, but it's worth more than that. It's basically you have Marky Mark and Lou Diamond Phillips, Bakeem Woodbine, and Antonio Sabato Jr. and their hitmen. And after they do this giant, there's this awesome scene. Like the action scenes in this movie are just out of this world, and there's a really cool shot where after everybody's left, Marky Mark, it's kind of like the scene in Die Hard. He jumps out of the building as it's blowing up, but we don't see the building blow up. Wahlberg lands in a giant pool, and in the reflection of this pool, we see the building blowing up, and it's an awesome shot. But yeah, American action movies by foreign directors are usually, you can imagine they'll be really well done. This was also produced by Wesley Snipes, but the main plot after that goes into Lou Diamond Phillips doesn't like the fact that Marky Mark is like he's the hitman everybody wants, like he gets a bonus. So Lou Diamond Phillips gets this idea to kidnap this famous movie producer's daughter. But the funny part is, the movie is an action comedy. Like, there's a lot of comedy in it to go with all the action. It's actually mostly a comedy. Like, the action kind of bookends it, really. But this movie producer actually just produced a really big flop, so now he's dead broke. And the daughter is actually the goddaughter of their boss. And when he finds out, he wants everybody killed, so he calls Lou Diamond Phillips. And Lou Diamond Phillips, of course, tells him that Marky Mark did it. So action ensues, and you get a villain in Lou Diamond Phillips, which is awesome. Like, he's really good in it. And the finale is at a video store, because the running joke is Wahlberg rented King Kong Lives, and it's really, really late, and the video store clerk keeps calling and harassing him for it. So finally, after this gigantic showdown, he decides to take King Kong Lives back to the video store, and it's this massive video store. It's like 2 stories. And Lou Diamond Phillips comes back. The joke is Lou Diamond Phillips just will not die. Like, he fake dies like 3 times, and then finally he shows up at this video store, and they have this fight that they're just all over the video store. And there's this joke where Bakeem Woodbine at the beginning talks about how his line is, "I've been fucking since I was 10." But the thing is he's like in his late 20s or early 30s now, and he's just discovered masturbation, and he decides that he likes it better than sex because he can do it anytime he wants. So that's just a running joke through the whole movie. Like, we see him exercising his hand all the time. And while they're fighting in this video store at the end, it's like this big, massive fight, and they stop dead in the middle of the fight, and they look up at this poster, and it says, Adult Video Customer of the Week, and it's this big picture of Bakeem Woodbine with his arms folded, and he's smiling. But, so yes, this movie's fucking awesome, if you can find it. Which, it's starting to gain a little popularity lately, especially with people, like, Wahlberg is just as big as he could be now. So people are starting to, and this actually, like, if you're watching the end credits, towards the end of the credits, a song comes on, and it's Marky Mark. It's a rap by Marky Mark. Oh. I'd never heard him actually sing until, well, there's the Good Vibration song, but I didn't know that was him for a long time. But it's a rap song that he's doing, and it's very interesting.
No knowledge of Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch at all. I'm sure he doesn't want to have that knowledge either, but he has it firsthand.
Yeah, make sure to look for this. It also has Christina Applegate as his fiance, and Elliot Gould as his Christina Applegate's dad. And there's a subplot where he's an alcoholic that's really funny and gross to a point. But yeah, I would tell you the director's name, but I can't pronounce it. So there's John Woo was an executive producer, so that tells you how awesome it is. And we're moving on to a totally different movie, which is Down in the Valley with Edward Norton. There you go. It's him and Evan Rachel Wood and David Morse, and it's Roy. Yes, it's Roy Culkin. And basically, Edward Norton plays a drifter, and he's actually they actually picture him with the American History X goatee, but for the most part, he's clean shaven, and he meets up with Evan Rachel Wood and her friends, and they all take a liking to him, and he's all cool and suave and all that. But the problem is not only does David Morse, who is her dad, hate him, just knows that he's bad news, but Norton's character Harlan is insane, for real. He's under the impression that he's trapped in a western, and he carries a gun with him that's loaded, and he's very unstable. A lot of people compare his character to Travis Bickle, which is pretty accurate. Especially, there's actually scenes where he's got the gun and he's practicing pulling it out like Travis Bickle does. I'm expecting him to narrate and, listen, you fuckers. But eventually he does grow the Derek Vineyard goatee pictured on the cover. And it's very interesting because he thinks he's in a western. That's why he's so weird. And the ending actually takes, they got the cops after him and everything. He's actually, they're actually in one of those, it's like some kind of festival or something, and it's set up like a western would be, and that's where the final showdown with the cops is. It's very interesting. And there's a subplot where he befriends Roy Culkin, and actually there's an interesting scene where he takes him to where they raced in Greece.
Yeah.
And he teaches him how to fire the gun and how it becomes a habit, which becomes a major plot point later that Harlan is so into this that he can, not even thinking about it, just whip out his gun and fire it, which is going to be bad news eventually.
Of course.
But so I really didn't know much about it going in, and the writer and director is a guy named David Jacobson, who has done a movie that I've seen, but I can't remember which one it is. But he's you need to look into him as a writer and director, and the movie itself. It's very engrossing.
Well, the thing is, you're talking about him growing the Derek Vineyard goatee. He looks a lot more like Sheldon Moops from Death of Sneaky.
Yeah.
And I see the name David Morse, and there's only one thing that comes to my mind immediately, and it's been an inside joke with us for the longest time. It's got to be
Hound Dog.
Hound Dog.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't seen Hound Dog, and I'm sure that's another thing, I'm sure you guys have never seen it. It's an interesting movie, to say the least. Well, there's a point where he's riding on a tractor. In a storm. And he gets hit by lightning. And I don't know why, but for me it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life. And we just replayed it over and over again. And there's even a YouTube video where you can replay it over and over again. And I'm sure it's been posted on message boards.
I don't know what about Hound Dog was supposed to be taken seriously, but I hope that wasn't it.
No, I'm sure it wasn't.
So anyway, make sure to look for Down in the Valley. If you can find, a lot of these I don't even know where you can find anymore because video stores are becoming obsolete. Netflix probably has a lot of these.
Netflix, or you can check out file sharing server sites.
I don't have Netflix, but Chris does, and I've used it, and it's got a lot of stuff in it.
There's got a lot of wrestling stuff that I don't have access to on my file sharing sites that I'd like to pick up.
The next one is a pretty beloved movie, but the problem is a movie came out with pretty much the exact same plot in the exact same year. This came out in October, and it came out in July.
Wow.
But the people who know this movie love it. It's Catherine Bigelow who was the first woman to win a Best Director Oscar for The Hurt Locker, in 1987 directed a vampire movie called Near Dark with a nice shiny case.
Yeah.
This was really cheap too, but it's like
very shiny.
It's an awesome 2-disc with a box and everything.
It's pretty awesome.
You got that lovely picture of Bill Paxton. Yeah, fucking awesome. It's literally it's a darker version of The Lost Boys. Like the Lost Boys had a lot of comedy in it and was known for like being the more hip version. This is like straight horror and straight gore. Just
I see that from the cover. Just looking at it, I've never seen the movie before in my life, but I can definitely tell it's horror.
Despite the fact that The Lost Boys is a vampire movie, there's the scene where Kiefer says time to join the club, and it's really graphic when they tear these people apart, and then the endings play. But other than that, The Lost Boys is pretty clean as far as gore. This is really gruesome. Like, there's a scene at a bar. It's a really long scene, but it's just the other vampires in the group are Lance Henriksen is the leader, and what's her name? Jeanette Goldstein, who was, you'd never guess because she's a chameleon actress, but she was Vasquez in Aliens, and she's John Connor's foster mom in Terminator 2. This is an alien. 3 people that were in Aliens are in this movie with Bill Paxton added onto that. Bill Paxton's basically taken the place of Kiefer. He plays a vampire named Severin, and he wears cowboy boots with giant spurs on them. And there's a very long scene in a bar where this bar is filled with people, and by the end of the scene, everybody in the bar is dead except for them. Like, and they don't just bite them to kill them. Like, Paxton goes up to this guy by the jukebox and, like, squeezes his head. And there's this very interesting, the bartender's towards the end of the bar, so Paxton jumps on the bar and walks all the way down. And instead of biting the guy or tearing him apart or doing something vampire-like, he uses the spur on his boot to slice into the guy.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, it's obviously straight horror and has a lot of scenes like that, but there are some light moments, like, it's just, I can't think of them now, but it also has something very clever. Like, I don't know if any other vampire movies have tackled this, because there's so many, you can't keep up with them, and all the shows that are on now that are devoted to them. But I've never seen it in another movie that I remember, and I haven't seen it. Like, I hadn't seen it before this, and I hadn't seen it since. Mm-hmm. They have the perfect solution for if you've been turned into a vampire. He gets a blood transfusion.
Yeah.
And he's human again. It's that simple. It's like, it bothers me to talk about this movie because The Lost Boys is one of my favorite movies. But I have to say, there's something about The Lost Boys that really wins people over, but it made people forget about this movie, obviously. But the thing is I prefer The Lost Boys. However, I can say, by all means, Near Dark should be considered the better movie. Okay. Because it's endlessly original, and it's really clever, and they do interesting things, like, especially the Paxton character. Like, I mean, I'd choose Kiefer any day, of course, but Paxton is not to be, forgotten. Like, he's, they bring this little kid in, and, it's actually the main guy's sister, and, they're in a hotel and it's 5 in the morning, which of course, they're being vampires, they're like playing cards. And she says, what are you guys doing up at 5 in the morning? And Paxton just turns to her and he's got like this burn on his face and he just says, we work odd hours. But it's, yeah, I don't know how hard it is to find. Like, back when video stores were open, you could find it in the horror section, just kind of, that's just the problem, though, is The Lost Boys really overshadowed it in popularity, so, for sure. And Catherine Bigelow also wrote it with the writer of The Hitcher, but both of them, he wrote the original and the new one. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's also really good character development. Like, there was, one of the vampires is a kid, but I guess he was turned, like, years ago, because he's like, it's like he's an old man in a kid's body. And it's a really profound scene when he goes and he gets the little sister, because it's like, he's lived for like 100 years, but he's never experienced love because he was changed as a kid. So he gets like, there's this really deep scene where like he really, really wants this girl for himself. And that's, this movie goes to a lot of places that vampire movies hadn't at the time and sometimes haven't since. But, you know, it's always going to have that Lost Boys competition. So that's what made it get lost in the shuffle. And the star of it, I have no idea who he is or where he is now. I think he does a lot of TV now, or did a lot of TV now. So there's that.
I've never heard that name before in my life, and I know a lot about old television, so I have no idea where he came from.
The next one you might have heard of, it's from 1990, is a, I don't remember what came first. I think this came before Unlawful Entry. If so, Unlawful Entry is a...
I thought that was 92.
Okay, then this is 90.
I think. My ears are bad, but I think that's right.
Mike Figgis, who did, he's most famous for Leaving Las Vegas. He did this crime thriller called Internal Affairs with Richard Gere and Andy Garcia, which is not to be confused with Infernal Affairs, which is the Hong Kong movie that The Departed is a remake of. It's pretty, you know, it's that basic plot point that's been used a lot now, where you have the, shit. Andy Garcia is an investigator, and Gere is like the cop. But the problem is that Gere is one of those, I can do whatever I want because I'm a cop. You know, like...
It says that on the tagline. It says simply, I'm staring at it right here, it says, trust him, he's a cop.
It's like, you have Alonzo Harris, and you have Samuel Jackson and Lakeview Terrace. It's that kind of character. But I like this so much better than Unlawful Entry. Like, it's, the suspense is better. Gere is incredible. Like, Gere's scary. He's really convincing. And it's, there's like this scene where, like, it's a really, for some reason, there's something creepy about it, but he's like, he's on the phone while he's doing this woman. And he's just, I don't know if it's the way he's talking, or the fact that he's doing both, or...
It's very just, Brooklyn's Finest flashback.
Yeah, this is, yeah. Don't even think about Brooklyn's Finest when you think about it.
Please don't ever think about it.
I haven't seen it for a long time, obviously. I'm a little rusty on it, but it's very engrossing. I use engrossing a lot, but
yeah,
there's not really else you can say.
That's true.
So yeah, once again, I don't know how hard it is to track down now, but you can see the case is kind of withered because I've had it for so long. But, yeah, Andy Garcia is one of the most underrated actors, like, of all time. And he's only been nominated for an Oscar once, and it was for fucking Godfather 3, which, well, no, I don't think anybody really likes. Like, there's people obviously who are vocal about how much they hate it, but then there's people who say they like it just because it goes in with the series. It's not as bad as people say. I think deep in their hearts nobody likes Godfather 3, and I'm in there. But just Andy Garcia movies in general you should track down, but especially this one. And City Island, if you get a chance.
Yeah, City Island is awesome.
So, I can't remember what woman is in it, but I don't know, she's probably not very famous now. It's probably like somebody really big, and I'm gonna look really stupid when I look it up later. But, yes, be sure to look into this.
Especially if you know Gere from stuff like Summersby and Chicago. I mean, this is completely different.
Season.
Yeah, exactly. Completely different.
Alright. This next one you will think you have seen, but you haven't. You've seen the YouTube videos that made this movie famous. We're, of course, talking about the Nicolas Cage movie, Vampire's Kiss.
I love that cover. I've never seen that before.
You've seen the videos on YouTube where he's running down the street screaming, "I'm a vampire!" And you've seen Conan O'Brien's terror alert system that involves him doing the alphabet. But you probably have never seen the movie, and you probably don't know what it's about. The movie's a very interesting concept, and it's not what you're thinking. He goes to bed with Jennifer. He's already unstable, and then he goes to like parties at night and just leads that lifestyle.
Gotcha.
And then he goes to bed with Jennifer Beals. Speaking of the 80s.
Yeah.
And she claims to be a vampire, and she bites him. But you see, the thing is I can't remember how far into the movie this is revealed, or if it's never really revealed, you just know it, but he's not a vampire
No.
at all. He is a crazy-ass person that thinks he's a vampire. Which, by the way, makes the casting perfect.
Absolutely.
Like, of course, everybody loves the, Cage is off the wall. Like, I don't even know, like, how much was scripted and how much they said, you know what, Cage, just do what you do. Because, the scene, like with the alphabet, he's talking to his secretary, who he's always harassing. Like, he even tries to rape her towards the end.
Jeez.
And he's telling her how to organize files. Like, you know, like normally he would say, like, you organize the files ABC. Not Nicolas Cage.
No.
Nicolas Cage goes through the whole damn alphabet. And he gets more and more out of control as he gets to Z. And there's, like, this movie is really dark. Like I said, it goes to, like, you do not see the ending of this movie coming. Like, he makes it, like, he like, completely fucks up his apartment and makes it, like, a coffin, and... Jeez. Let's just say it gets out of control when he does try to rape his secretary, and his secretary has a vengeful brother. And the movie ends very ironically. And it's, like, insane. So, yeah, oh my god, I didn't even know that. Cage does commentary on this DVD.
Oh, wow.
I gotta listen to that later.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there's, this is actually a different cover. A lot of the cover is, the most famous cover, I think, is a red cover, and he's, like, poking his head out of a bed. And he's, like, looking up a woman's skirt or something.
I like this a whole lot better.
Yeah, there's this picture of him with a fucking Band-Aid on his neck. But yeah, and the ironic thing is he always goes to a therapist. But the problem is the more time he spends with this therapist, the crazier he actually gets instead of the other way around. But the movie is hilarious, but it's really dark and really not what you're expecting. So definitely look into it if you so desire. We'll actually come back to Cage later. But right now we're going to go on to a hilarious movie that I think it was like 2006 or something. I was concerned because Judd Apatow was an executive producer, but he doesn't ruin it. It's Lawrence Kasdan, who did like The Big Chill and Silverado, has a son, I think it's his son, named Jake, and he wrote and directed this comedy with David Duchovny called The TV Set, which is about how Duchovny's a writer for a sitcom, and he's trying to get the pilot off the ground. So the problem is it's about, the pilot is about his life, and it starts with his brother committing suicide. But it's a sitcom, so they're trying to always get him to change the story and try to change the way it goes. But of course, that's what the whole movie is. It's a really short movie, and it really gets to the point, but it's really clever and really just... There's no scene that's, like, worthless. Like, every scene, it just does what it needs to do, and then you're done. And it's consistently hilarious, especially with this is a great Duchovny performance. And Sigourney Weaver is good in it, too. It's, But the problem is Justine Bateman plays his wife, and they already have a baby, and they're pregnant with another one. So they really need money. So pretty much no matter what changes they make to this sitcom, he has to go with it because he needs money.
That sucks.
And they definitely make the changes. Like, there's one of the scenes where they do... we actually get to see a test screening, and they do his version, which is dark, but is funny, too, and heartfelt. And then they do the other sitcom thing where it's just the dumbest thing you've ever seen. It's stupid, unfunny comedy that's just really...
Apatow.
Yeah. And there's this really great scene where it's the guy who's, like, hosting the test screening, and he takes us through the... he's really into his job, and he's like, what you have in front of you is a dial. And what happens is, if you see something on the screen that makes you happy... You turn that dial to the right, and that's a 10. But if something on the screen makes you uncomfortable or makes you sad, you turn it to the left, and that's a 0. And some guy, like there's some guy in the back, and he's like, man, this is easy, yo. And he's like, The guy goes, "Yeah, it is, yo." He's got like John C. Reilly hair.
Oh
and
God.
And there's this. They're kind of like a combination of NBC, ABC, and Fox. And they've got what's really interesting. This show like predicted the future because Sigourney Weaver is talking and we see the schedule behind her. And this was like in 2006. So it was 5 years in advance. This channel, we never actually see it, we just see a poster for it, but this channel actually hosts a political-themed show called Homeland.
Wow.
And there's this, we also see, it actually comes back later, but there's, we see one of the shows is Slut Wars.
That's awesome.
And we actually get to see, like, after the end credits, we get to see, in the middle of the end credits, actually, we get to see the end of an episode of Slut Wars. And it's kind of like, it's a bunch of scantily clad women, and they all live in this mansion together. And the Ryan Seacrest-like host is Seth Green.
That's great.
And he says, like, one of them's getting voted out of the house. And he says her name, and then he's like, "You've been voted out. Put your clothes on and get out of here. Your stuff has been assembled in the alleyway outside."
That's great.
But yeah, the show is mainly about his battle with trying to make the show his own, and they keep changing it to what every other sitcom is like. And there's a great Fran Kranz, who is the guy that played the stoner in Cabin in the Woods. Mm-hmm. Is the guy from Big Bang Theory that became an astronaut. I can't remember his character's name now, but he's the actor that Duchovny wanted. But he plays it really seriously, and then Fran Kranz comes in and does a really wild performance, and they all love him because they think he's funny. So that immediately puts Duchovny at it. But the thing is there's a running joke about Taxi Driver, where like the problem with the actor is sometimes he'll be really overly trying to be funny, and then he'll be really serious. And Duchovny's talking to Judy Greer, who's his assistant, and he says, he's talking about how sometimes he's really funny, and then sometimes he's Travis Bickle. And Judy Greer just kind of looks at him, and he's like, Taxi Driver? And she's like, "Oh, I haven't seen that." And he's like, "You haven't seen Taxi Driver?" And then the conversation kind of goes off, and he cuts off in the middle of the conversation. "You haven't seen Taxi Driver?" And then there's a scene like 20 minutes later where they're in this argument, and right in the middle of the argument, he just goes, "Well, you haven't seen Taxi Driver." And she says, "I'm going to rent The Taxi Driver. It's at the top of my Netflix queue."
Very nice.
So yeah, it's just filled. And Johan Gruffett has, he's like in charge of BBC America. He came over from England, and they're basically giving him like they call it the Panda Network, like, but it's a combination NBC ABC.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, this movie is hilarious, especially if you're really into like how TV works and stuff like that. Because I think Jake Kasdan was actually in TV for a long time, so it's like a first-person point of view. So yeah, that about wraps that up. So going on to a
from one extreme to another.
This is a wild-ass movie from 1990 called Miami Blues. Yeah, that is a shirtless Alec Baldwin. That was actually appropriate back in 1990. And it's a comedy, but it's also a really violent crime movie. And those things balance. Like, there's just as much violent crime as there is comedy. And it's really... There is no... Like, I can seriously say, I don't think I've ever seen another movie like this. This movie is wild and insane. But the plot is, Baldwin is basically just a regular con artist. Like, he, forges signatures and steals identities. And he comes into, his introduction is he's off because he's forging a signature in his first scene, and he's becoming a different guy. Mm-hmm. And he's walking through the airport, and it's one of those Hare Krishna guys, and they're like, "Have you seen the movie Gandhi? And we want to tell you about, this." And he says, "What's your name?" And Baldwin says, "Trouble," and grabs the guy's hand and breaks his hand, and it sends the guy into a heart attack and kills him. And Baldwin just goes off, but that murder gets him on the, there's a cop played by Fred Ward, who only gets the first credit because he's an executive producer, but Baldwin is the main character.
That was my next question. Why is Fred Ward first credited?
But Baldwin falls in love with she falls in love with him, but he basically uses her because she's got a lot of investments. But Jennifer Jason Leigh plays a really, like, heart of gold. This is, like, my favorite Jennifer Jason Leigh performance, and she has a lot of great ones. I haven't seen Georgia yet, which apparently is, like, her best movie, but, she puts on this sweet voice, and she's just playing, like, not the normal character she would. This is, like, the absolute opposite of her character in Single White Female. She's, like, got nothing but a heart of gold. And she loves him to death, even though he's using her. But they get married, even, so he can, like, that comes in later, but what happens is, Fred Ward comes to their house because he's got to question him because Baldwin obviously fits the description of the guy at the airport because it is him.
Yeah.
But Fred Ward doesn't know that. So they have dinner and they're really friendly and stuff like that, but then the thing is Fred Ward wears false teeth. Mm-hmm. He explains why, but I can't remember what it is. So Baldwin, you know how Baldwin steals identities?
Yeah.
Baldwin goes to Fred Ward's house, knocks him out, steals his badge, and just to be a dick, steals his teeth.
Good God.
So he goes around with Fred Ward's badge and acts like a cop. Like he'll bust drug dealers, but then he'll take their shit. And there's this scene where there's a guy who it's a really funny scene. This guy steals a person who's running down the sidewalk, and she's like, "Help me!" So Baldwin tackles the guy and shows his badge, and he has the purse. And she's like, "Oh, thank you so much." And he's like, "No problem." And he takes off with the purse. She's like, "Wait a minute, you're a cop!"
That's great.
But the ending of this movie goes out of control. There are so many things in this movie that just come out of fucking nowhere. And it just really, the shit just keeps coming. And, I can't express enough. I have never seen a movie like this before or after.
Wow.
This is its own thing. And, it'll get you hooked on the song Spirit in the Sky. And, if those commercials don't, this will. So, this one's pretty hard to find. I actually found it for $1 on video. I had it on VHS forever, and me and my mom were discussing this. I don't even remember where I got this DVD. It might have been at a Target out of town or something.
Movie stop in Florida, maybe?
It could be, but I didn't get it used, so it was a store, but I don't remember what it was now. But it's probably hard. I don't know how hard it is to come by now, but look for it. It might. This would probably be something that would show up on Netflix or something eventually.
I'd say so.
Yeah, it's wild. This next one is a movie I literally never heard of. I got it as a gift, actually. Just when I got a shitload of movies one year, and this happened to be one of them. I guess because it was on a bargain bin. But it's an indie comedy called Bluey. And the writer and director is this guy who is also the star of it, which normally I think is kind of, somebody's a little full of themselves. But this guy really knows what, you have those indie movies that just feel really indie for the sake of it, and this feels so much like it should be one of those movies, but there's something so charming about this movie, and it's really funny. The whole movie is really funny. Basically the plot is this guy has no money, so he has to live with his sister, who's Lisa Kudrow.
Okay.
And, but he doesn't have a job, so he's pretty much there to take care of the kids, but then her husband is, off in the war. So she has no money either. She has to go back to work for this computer company. So he also needs a job, though, because they're both broke. So she gets him the job of being the mascot of this computer company, which is this blue suit that he's wearing. And what his job is he has to he has to hand out flyers for this computer company. But the trouble is they drive him out in the middle of nowhere and leave him, in the fucking desert. And that's where he's supposed to do this, on the side of the road.
Jeez.
But he's in this suit that's really hot and really oversized. He can barely stand up in it, and he has to hold the flyers under his arm because the fucking thing doesn't have hands. And there's nobody in this area that would need computers, let alone flyers for a computer company.
That's all a big rib.
But there's scenes where he dresses up as the thing and goes to a birthday party, and the running joke is the kids keep telling it, like her kids that he's babysitting for, keep telling him, "I'm gonna kill you." And that's just a running thing that keeps going.
Wow.
So he wins them over by going to this birthday party as the, I think Bluey is actually the name of the mascot. That's where the title comes from.
That makes sense.
There's a subplot with Jeffrey Dean Morgan where he's like the boss of the computer company and Lisa Kudrow has an affair with him. So he has to maintain all these secrets while living his miserable life. And like there's the scene where Jeffrey Dean Morgan turns into Hulk Hogan. Not literally, but the first time we see him, I didn't even know he was in it until he showed up, but he's like screaming about pay during this guy's interview for the mascot. And he spots the guy and he goes, "Hey, how much are they paying you, dude?" Just to hear Jeffrey Dean Morgan accidentally channel Hulk Hogan is worth the price of admission alone. But
that needs to be watched immediately.
Yeah, I don't know where this movie was bought. I don't know where you can find it, if you can still find it, because I had never heard of it before I came across it. It just came into my life like that. It was like fate, me in this film.
Yes.
But if somewhere down the road you come across it, be sure to look into it because it's really consistently funny, and there's just something that just really wins you over, even though, like I said, it's one of those movies that should absolutely fall in the category of, good God, this is so indie, it's making me sick. But it didn't fall into that category. It's a legitimate... Christine Taylor's in it too, but I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't seen the movie in so long, I don't remember what she does in it. She might be his love interest or something.
That makes sense.
But, yeah, so there's that. We're about halfway done here already.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of wild-ass movies you've probably never heard of, before she got famous, when Keira Knightley was 15, she did this movie. I think it's one of those movies that was filmed like 4 years before it was released, because they just couldn't get it going. Mm. But, it's this really wild movie called The Hole. And you can see they're really trying to cash in because, Keira Knightley's a supporting character in this movie. She's important, but she's a supporting character. Thora Birch is the lead. Mm-hmm. But as you can see, the only thing they're using to get this movie out there is Keira Knightley's face. That's all it is. And the comment at the bottom is about Keira Knightley. And the thing is I actually caught this movie on demand one night. Okay. This I did get at Movie Stop. I didn't know it existed on DVD when I found it, so I grabbed it as soon as I could. Because it just really, like, blew me away. And the thing is there's this field trip at their school, and they don't want to go. So what they do is, while this field trip's supposed to go on, I guess, for a day or two. So Thora Birch has a friend that has the keys to it's like a really big fallout shelter. Okay. So the four of them, it's Keira Knightley and Thora Birch and Desmond Harrington from Dexter. And a guy named Lawrence Fox, who looks like the son of Paul Bettany, but I've seen him in other movies, I don't forget what they are. The thing is Thora Birch wants Desmond Harrington. Like, the whole reason, like, she actually told her friend to set this up just so she could get time with Desmond Harrington. Well, the problem is once they're all down there, they get locked in, and they can't get out. And the only thing they have to live on is what little party surprise they brought with them. And it becomes one of those fight for survival movies. But the thing is this movie is all over the place as far as... It gives you time to figure out what's going on, but at the same time, this movie is always a step ahead of you. Like, they do the thing, like, the scenario pretty much... when the movie starts, everybody but Thora Birch is dead. And we have to figure... She's talking to Embeth Davis, who's like a doctor, and they're trying to figure out what happened. It's one of those movies where they play you one scenario, and Thora Birch is like, that's what happened. Of course, the movie's not even halfway over. We know that's not what happened, so we see what really happened. And shit gets really wild. Like, there's a particular scene that stands out where, obviously they're running out of supplies. Mm. And one of the characters has smuggled in a can of Coke. It's the only drink they have. And he's hiding it. And so while two people are in the other room fighting, he's going to open this can of Coke and get a drink in. But the sound of it opening gets the guy's attention. and just out of a rage, the guy runs in, grabs him by the head, and beats him literally to death over this can of Coke. And there is a scene, like, people, those of you who have your morals in the right place, this movie was a little controversial because I'm not sure how they got, there's some rule they got away with it, but you see Keira Knightley topless in this movie. She was only 15 when they shot this movie. I don't know how that happened, but I think it's like UK. I think it was shot in the UK, and I think they have different rules than we do. But yeah, this movie's really dirty too. Like, yeah, that's all I can say. This movie's got a lot of sexual material.
The title looks like a double entendre too.
Yeah.
Trying to stay away from that, but it's just stare at Keira Knightley and
of
the
course,
word the whole. It's staring
like,
at me.
It's like it's labeling her.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she's like the whore, that bangs everybody.
That's not really. I can't really tell.
You get a lot of, for those of you who are perverted and want to see 15-year-old Keira Knightley in a schoolgirl outfit for most of a movie, there you go.
Ellen Page and Hard Candy comes to mind too.
Ellen Page was of age, though, I think, by then.
I'm not sure about that.
Ellen Page is going to be playing teenagers in her 50s.
That's a correct statement right there.
But yeah, there's a lot of, there's an all-guy shower scene with a lot of full-frontal nudity. It's got the movie's very dirty and very, don't watch it with other people around unless they're watching it with you. But check it out because it's pretty mind-blowing and like really, it's really fucked up is what it is. But there's twists and turns everywhere and yeah, so that's that. Okay. Next one, I gotta go into this DVD cover before I do anything else. This DVD cover is so off. This is a very dark movie. I don't even know if it's a black. Would it be considered a black comedy, or is it just a straight drama?
I think it's a drama with comedy thrown inside.
Oh, it's the guy that wrote and directed. It's the guy that wrote The Wrestler. It's a movie starring Patton Oswalt called Big Fan. I gotta talk about this cover because Patton Oswalt is an obsessed football fan. Like, you think me doing this with movies is bad? Let me tell you about Patton Oswalt's character's obsession. His character's name's Paul, so I'm going to start calling him that. Paul's obsession with football is so weird.
It's insane.
What happens is he calls into this radio show every night, and he rants about the Giants, and he hates the Eagles. He fights with this guy, Philadelphia Phil, who's Michael Rappaport. He's like the world's biggest Eagles fan, and Paul's the biggest Giants fan.
Exactly.
This is how Paul's every night plays out, and a lot of reviews discuss this. It's pretty much assumed that Paul from the get-go was like not all there.
Yeah, definitely.
But he calls into this radio show, and he goes off on these. He writes them ahead of time while he's at work. He works at a toll booth, and he no, not toll booth, but a parking garage. And he writes out these rants, and then he reads them off. And he feels like whenever he feels like he really told off the Eagles, he has this ritual. He gets so excited. Once he goes off on the Eagles and hangs up the phone, he jerks off.
Yep. The excitement of putting under the Eagles so badly.
It's so weird because, like, he'll hang up the phone and he'll have this proud look on his face, and then he'll start rubbing his hands together.
Got the lotion ready to roll.
There's actually one awkward scene where we see him jerk off.
Yeah, not cool.
But anyway, the plot is, he and his best friend's played by Kevin Corrigan, who is cousin Sean in The Departed, and he's also one of he's Henry Hill's brother in Goodfellas. Mm-hmm. He's in a lot of movies. He's a great character actor that they throw in there. I don't know if he's a character. Yeah. Anyway, they're out one night for pizza, and he sees a player on the Giants in the, it's a fictional character, but they see him at a gas station, and Paul says, maybe we can, like, get an autograph, or, just talk to him or say hi, and so, but he starts to drive out of the gas station, so, not really thinking about it, they just get in the car and they follow him. Mm-hmm. And of course, they stop at this shady-looking house, and he goes in. We're pretty sure he's getting drugs, and he comes back out.
Yeah.
And they don't know where he's going, but they just keep following him. Before they realize that they're like 50 miles away, and they're still following him.
Yeah.
And finally, they get to this bar, and they go in, and they just kind of stake him out. Like, they're trying to... Like, there's a scene where, like, he goes into the bathroom, so Paul goes in after him, and he's gonna... Like, he goes to approach him, and he's just unseen.
Yep.
So finally, they approach him, and they say, hey, we just wanted to hang out, and the guy's really welcoming. He's like, oh, you guys are fans, that's cool, and it's like, where are you guys from? And he says where they're from, and he's like, really, we just came from there. And then he starts to figure it out, and he's like, did you guys, like, follow us here? And I don't know if it's the drugs or if he's just that way, but he starts getting really paranoid, so he beats the shit out of Paul.
Yeah.
It gives him a concussion, and he's in the hospital for a few days. And it comes down to the fact that this player is basically going to be, like, taken out of the season.
Yeah, he's going to be suspended for the rest of the season for his actions.
But Paul is such a Giants fan, they need this player. So Paul starts lying to the cops about what he remembers.
Yep. So
this guy won't get suspended. And there's actually the scene where the cop slowly starts to figure it out because Paul's like, I'm not really a football fan, I'm not really a Giants fan. And the cop sees that he's, like, covered in Giants shit. Like his cell phone case and his hat and his jacket.
Yeah, he's red and blue head to toe.
But and Paul was already unstable. Getting a concussion didn't help anything.
No.
Now let me talk about this DVD case. Never once do you see a football game. Nope. Not even, they watch it on TV, but the TV's facing the other way. We never even see a football game on TV. I don't know what they were trying to sell, but not only is there a football being played on the cover, it's on the back too. But this picture right here was the original poster, just that. Which I think is really effective because he's in the Giants stuff, but he looks, you can sense just by looking at him there's something wrong with him. And the ending of this movie, I won't say what it is, but
it's awesome.
Well, I'll build it up. I will say that Philadelphia, he pretty much gets so mad at Philadelphia Phil one night that they kick him off the radio show. So Paul gets in his car. He's got a map to Philadelphia, and he stops at a sporting goods store. And he buys a Philadelphia jersey, Philadelphia paint, and a gun. And he's going to Philadelphia. And what happens when he finds Philadelphia Phil, it's a really great payoff, I'll just say that. And it's not really, I'll just leave it at that. It's a great payoff.
I mean...
So, yeah, it's got a lot of funny moments, but it's more of a drama than anything. Like, you just know he's just losing it. Like, the scene where his mom collects those packets of sausage you get, like, at Chinese restaurants.
Yeah.
And she's got, like, 1 billion of them. And she's like, you know, you really need to get a job. You need to, like, get out more. And he just has, it's this, like, it's almost chilling. Like, Oswald is so good in it. Oh my god, it's so good in it. But he's got this crazy laugh. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what it is about that scene. That scene just really gets to me. Like he says, she's like saying, you need to do that. You need to get a girlfriend is what she's saying. You need to get out more. And he just starts hysterically laughing, and he just says, you need 6,000 egg rolls to put all that stuff on. And he just starts laughing maniacally, and it's really weird. But yeah, it's pretty dark, but the payoff is so good. Like, a lot of people think the payoff is kind of bullshit, but
no,
I think it's a great payoff, and I love it. So, yeah, check it out. I'm pretty sure it won't be too hard. It's from 2009. It's not that old. So,
I mean, you have Patton's character in Big Fan, and he's so good, he's so brilliant in his unstable character, and then you just make it a mission. Just watch it, and then go watch Ratatouille. And you can see the different facets of Patton Oswalt, because if you didn't know, he was Remy. He was the voice of Remy in Ratatouille, and it's funny watching him do press for Disney. He was doing, like, Movie Surfers, and he was like, I have to not curse, and I can't help it. It's driving me insane. I'm having such a great time, though. It's amazing.
It's like Bob Saget on the set of Full House.
That's exactly what it's like. And
also add in watching Reno 911
And,
after that.
and Patton's a brilliant stand-up, too, so if you get a chance to watch any of his stand-up stuff, I definitely recommend it. Awesome stuff.
The next movie is a movie so obscure I only own it on VHS. It's I'm really not much into straight-to-video movies, but this movie, something went wrong with the distribution, and this movie got released straight-to-video, but it's a very dark, I guess it's a comedy. It's a very dark comedy called The Curve. Well, it's called The Curve, but I think it's more widely known as Dead Man's Curve, and, like, lately. But if you've seen Dead Man on Campus, it's literally, like, they came out in the same year, it's the same story, it's just, Dead Man on Campus was a comedy with dark elements, this is a dark movie with comedy elements. Like, this movie is, like, off the wall.
Yeah.
It's Matthew Lillard right off the success of Scream, and they really use that because his character is so vile and disgusting, like in a moral kind of way.
Yeah.
It's the Dead Man on Campus theme where if your roommate in college commits suicide, you get an automatic 4.0 because you can't deal with it. So they off their roommate.
Of course.
They put rat poison in his alcohol after getting him drunk, and there's this, like, they get him drunk. There's a really funny scene where they're reenacting the deer hunter, and they're doing the Russian roulette scene. But you got, like, Lillard doing the Mao thing, like the Vietnamese guy.
Yeah.
And but instead of, it's the Russian roulette where, like, when you open the beer cans. But what happens is the movie goes really off the wall when Michael Vartan is the other roommate, who you probably know. I know from a lot of movies, you probably know from Alias, which I never watched. But the thing is when the cops start investigating, like, Matthew Lillard says he's got the whole plan figured out, and Vartan just goes with it.
Okay.
But when the cops start investigating, Lillard starts screwing with Vartan, trying to make him look guilty.
Makes sense.
Like, he always, like, there's a particular scene where they're being talked to in the dorm, and he says Vartan's name is Chris, and they're talking about their roommate Rand, who's the dead one.
Mm-hmm. And
they're talking to Lillard, and Lillard just says, well, I didn't really talk to him that much, but Chris, you were with him, like, all night, man. And everybody thinks Vartan's guilty because and it's got a lot of twists. Like, you don't really know where it's going, and you don't really know what Lillard's motive is. Like, he's just insane, basically. Like, they keep saying his dad, like, owns half the town.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta point out, though, not only is this movie straight to video, but it's really good. But as far as the way it's made and the way it looks, the movie looks really cheap. Like, there's boom mics visible. There's actually a scene where Michael Vartan goes to buy flowers for Carrie Russell. And when he goes up to the flower stand, you can see it's a set that they've built. It's supposed to look like a background, like a beach background, but you can fucking see Vartan's shadow on the wall.
Oh, man.
But, I didn't let that get to me, because it's, Dana Delaney is the school therapist, and she's really good at it. Like, the opening scene during the beginning credits is a really good scene where it's cutting back and forth between the credits and them asking Dana Delaney what to look for in suicidal people. And she tells them, like, books and CDs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they're going out and buying all this stuff to put in Rand's room, like Edgar Allan Poe novels and,
Nice.
Like, they're talking about all the depressing music, and they go to it's one of those funny things where you have these off characters on the side, like, they're buying depressing CDs, and the clerk is this punk girl, and she's going through, like, all the depressing CDs that buy, like, Smiths and The Cure. And after she goes all those, she just looks at them and says, we got a sale on Joy Division.
Awesome.
But yeah, what's really interesting, watching Lillard in this movie is what the whole point is. Because this character barely kills anybody. And he's just as crazy as Stu Macher, if not more so. Because he turns everybody against everybody, and he's just like the ringleader of this whole thing. Like, everybody's his puppet. And there's this, I suppose I can give this away, it's not a big deal, but, he's so evil in this particular scene, Michael Vartan's trying to win back Carrie Russell.
Mm.
So he devises this plan. He says, I'm going to take Carrie Russell out, and I'm going to, like, you know, take her out for drinks and all that. While I have her out and distracted, you go in her room and you set it up all nice. Like, you put candles in it and flowers in it and all that. That's the scene where Vartan goes to buy flowers and you see a shadow.
Nice.
What happens is, and he says, and you wait in the closet and you can pop out and surprise her. So what happens is he gets Carrie Russell really drunk, and they come back, and he knows Vartan's in the closet waiting, and he can see through the cracks what's going on.
Yep.
Lillard brings Carrie Russell in, and she thinks he's the one that set up all the flowers and candles. So with Vartan watching from the closet, they make out, and she starts to suck him off.
Oh, dear God.
Like, and they're fighting about it later, and I don't know why this line always killed me. I don't know if it's supposed to be funny or not, but Carrie Russell's trying to make amends with him, and she's like, I was really drunk, and I didn't know what I was doing, and she said, I made a mistake, and Vartan just looks at her and goes, a mistake? My roommate's dick was in your mouth! But yeah, it goes to some, there's black comedy moments like that, but it goes to some really dark places, too. And like I said, the ending is all twisted. Like, the last 10 minutes of this movie has, like, 10 twists come from out of nowhere. And after the movie was over, I still hadn't quite figured it out. I had to, like, piece it together later. So, yeah, I think you might be more than likely to find it under the title Dead Man's Curve, but it's also well-known under this title. So, it's not well-known at all, but if you're looking for it, you'll find it under either one of those. This next one is one of my favorite movies, like one of my favorite movies ever. It's an 80s black comedy you'll find a lot of black comedies, like I said before, it's my favorite genre. This is Jonathan Demme's movie, Something Wild, with Melanie Griffith and Jeff Daniels, and what happens is Jeff Daniels leads a pretty stable life. Like, it's a boring life, though. He's, like, works in an office, and he's trying to get promoted, and he meets Melanie. Melanie Griffith actually sees him stiff a waitress, and she calls him out on it. And then she basically lures him into her life, and they just drive around. And she's basically bringing out his wild side. Like, the cover suggests there is a scene where she handcuffs him to the bed, and that's one of the scenes this movie is known for.
Mm-hmm.
And it just turns into a road trip movie. Like, there's actually a couple of callbacks to it in Dumb and Dumber, because it's Jeff Daniels on a road trip.
Yeah.
But, but the thing is after they're on this road trip, and there's also cameos everywhere, like, John Sayles, the director, plays a motorcycle cop. The guy that they buy a car from is John Waters.
Yeah.
In a cameo. But the problem is this road trip gets cut short because her husband, who is insane, has escaped from prison, and he's played by Ray Liotta. It's my favorite Ray Liotta performance. This was like his first movie. This was his breakout role before Goodfellas, and he actually got a Golden Globe nomination for it. And it's about an hour or so into the movie, and they're at a high school reunion, and he shows up. I think by then she doesn't know that he's out of prison, and he just shows up there, and then they fall in with him, and the movie goes from this light road trip comedy to this. It's still a comedy, but it goes really into, like, by the end of the movie, it's a full-on drama.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but it doesn't like shift tones, like it gradually goes, like, you have light comedy, and then you have the comedy with dark elements, and then you have the comedy slowly disappearing into dark elements, then you end on drama and thriller. So it's actually really well done that way. But Ray Liotta's character is just... I could just rave about him all day. His name is even Ray. It's like it was meant to be. Like, he's, the Ray Liotta laugh that everybody loves comes into it a lot. Like, he's, and you don't know how crazy he is. Like, he could be an understanding guy, or he could be a complete psychopath. Like, he's talking about Melanie Griffith. He and Jeff Daniels are in the car by themselves while Melanie Griffith's in the gas station. And he's talking about Melanie Griffith and how hot she is. And he says, come on, man, I'll bet she could fuck you right in half. And he does his maniacal laugh. And Jeff Daniels has this really serious look on his face. And he's like, there's no need for that kind of talk, Ray. Well, Leota has this look on his face, and you don't know if he's like he can't believe Jeff Daniels is talking to him this way, or but then he just is like really calm, and he's like, you know what, you're right. But that look he gave Daniels really briefly makes you think Ray's not, completely going on up here.
No.
But yeah, the ending gets really out of control. Like, he gets really insane. Like, especially when they you can tell that's pretty much where you can tell the movie shifts from comedy to drama is they really piss him off by leaving him like a cop comes into the diner, which obviously he's wanted because he just broke out of prison.
Yeah.
And they leave him there with the bill, and they take his money. And so Leota's just kind of sitting there, and Jeff Daniels is feeling proud of himself, like, ha, I got you back. And Leota just says, you're going to regret this. And Jeff Daniels is like, well, And Leota gets this look on his face, and he's like, you're really going to regret this. And that's where you know the movie's going to take you to a place that you're not expecting. But there's this... And they just throw in little funny things, like, even though his character's so crazy and so scary, there's this really funny moment that lasts for just a second. After he leaves the diner, because he met a girl at a hotel that pays for his thing and gets him out of the bind, but he's looking for a car to steal, and he finds one that's like, it's a family car, and he gets into this car, and he's getting ready to start it. It's like, just to show you that he's not a completely scary character, to make him human, I guess. But after he's really scared you with that, you're really going to regret this line. It's the funniest scene in the movie, probably, and it lasts for just a second. He's in this family car, and he's getting ready to start the car, and he's getting ready to drive off, and he spots something in the passenger seat, and he picks it up. And it's a toy Gumby. And he just looks at it for a second, and he just kind of does this, and then he throws it out. For some reason, for 1 second, he finds Gumby hilarious, and he just throws it out the window.
Yes.
Oh, God. Just that 1 second is hilarious. But, it's one of my favorite movies. Like, I watch it over and over again. There was a point in time where I watched it almost every day, just because.
Wow.
And, it's really good. It's got a really good soundtrack, too. Like, this is one of those movies where when you watch the credits roll, the soundtrack list goes on for like 5 minutes. So yeah, this was Demi pre Silence of the Lambs. So this is his best movie in my opinion. But he's kind of gone off now. Like, everybody loves Rachel getting married, but I think Demi is just really going downhill lately. But this was when he was in his prime, the late 80s and the early 90s, and this has a lot of Demi regulars in it, like a few people you'll recognize from Silence of the Lambs and Philadelphia. So, yeah. And Melanie Griffith does a lot of nudity, if you're into that. This next one is a movie that I had seen the cover of for a long time, but I never knew what it was about. And I assumed it was a crime movie, but it's a comedy, actually. But it has crime and it has drama, but it's actually comedy's pretty front and center. It's a dream team that you would never expect. It's a movie called Gridlock'd, starring Tim Roth and Tupac. And they actually have really great chemistry. The other person in the movie is Tandy Newton, but the thing is a lot of the movie is told in flashbacks because it starts with Tandy Newton having a drug overdose. They're all druggies, and they all live in this house together. And Tandy Newton has an overdose and has to go to the hospital. So, while trying to deal with the crime and the drama that's already in their lives, the whole movie is basically their search for... they decide after Tandy Newton overdoses they're going to go into rehab to try to get their lives back in order. But their lives are so fucked that they're not eligible for any of these rehab places. So they have to keep going from place to place trying to get rehab. and it's like it's got a lot like when the comedy and the drama comes, it's really heavy, but the comedy is really in the front, which sounds like it might be tonally off, but it actually really works. Like, I was really surprised by it, because, like I said, when I saw it, I had no idea what it was. I assumed it was a crime movie just by the look of it. And, Vonda Curtis Hall, who is an actor, wrote and directed it. I think this was his first time directing. And, it's really like it's a friendship movie, too, because they really care about Tandy Newton, and that's why they want to put their lives back together. And it's a really dramatic scene when she overdoses, and they like have to get her to the hospital. But yeah, there's not really much to say on it really, other than that. So yeah, when you see, despite the fact that it stars Tim Roth and Tupac, and looks very dramatic and crime-like, it's actually a comedy, and it succeeds. So yeah, the back calls it a gritty comedy. That's right. So, there you go. And Tupac was a really underrated actor, by the way. Like, especially, you need to track down Juice while you're at it. And there's a movie called Gang Related. It's okay, but it's him and Jim Belushi. I fucking hate Jim Belushi, but he plays this really, really dirty cop, and he's like the villain of the movie. It's interesting.
I like Tupac and Poetic Justice.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, which another movie is I have a shitload of Tupac movies on DVD. Like, I got them all at the same time at Circuit City.
I'm in Circuit City.
Yeah, back when that existed.
No lie.
This is another fairly new movie from 2009. It's Bobcat Goldthwait's movie, World's Greatest Dad, with Robin Williams. I think it went to Sundance.
I believe it did.
Which is why it probably didn't get out very far. But the thing is according to Bobcat and Robin Williams was supposed to have a cameo in it, because he and Bobcat are like best friends. Like, Williams has the cameo and Shakes the Clown as the teacher.
Yep.
But Bobcat was really surprised when Williams said, "I want to be the star. Like, I want to be the main guy."
Nice.
So basically, the plot's really well known now. If you know the movie, it's well known. But the thing is when I saw it, I didn't know, so it took me by surprise. But
oh yeah,
the plot is Daryl Savara, who is Junie from Spy Kids. He is Robin Williams' son, and this character is he's the worst son in the entire world. He's perverted, and he's mean, and it becomes a plot point. He's so perverted. He watches like the really disgusting porn that nobody in their right mind would go to. And he ties a belt around his neck and does it that way, like the autoerotic asphyxiation is what it's called.
Yep.
Don't ask me how I know that.
I know that from George Carlin.
I know that because of David Carradine's obituary.
George Carlin bit.
But anyway, what happens is Williams is a struggling writer, and he's written a shitload of books, but he can't get any of them published. So what happens is he gets famous because his son Kyle is doing the autoerotic asphyxiation, and he accidentally killed himself. Realizing how embarrassing of a situation this would be, despite the fact that nobody liked him to begin with, Williams makes it look like he hung himself before he calls the cops, and he writes out a suicide note that's like really poetic. So, in death, Kyle becomes really famous because of this suicide note, and they are like, "Oh, I didn't realize it's a really big. It's a lot like Heathers. It's one of those movies that really makes a big statement on how bad people are glorified when they die, no matter how bad they were. So." The whole school becomes enamored by Kyle now. Like, it's the same picture of him that we see in Williams' house, and it's just plastered all over everything in the school. And they're all, like, writing poetry about him. And so Williams, putting his writing to work for everybody to finally be able to see, he writes a journal that Kyle wrote. And it gets published. And it becomes this big thing. Like, he gets on this show that's like it's like a spin-off of Oprah. It's like a combination Katie Couric and Oprah. And then it kind of goes from there. Obviously, he's always living with the fact that, like, Kyle actually has a friend that he was always mean to, that's slowly starting to figure it out. Like, he's always bugging Williams about, like, Kyle would never write the stuff that's in that journal. He'd never write that suicide note. Like, to be nice to our viewers, I won't say the things that Kyle says.
No.
But good, the dialogue in this movie is so graphic and disgusting. But the movie is really got its heart in a place that really knows what it's talking about. There's this it's the ending scene where, without giving away what happens beforehand, all the pressure that Williams has had on him throughout this whole movie is finally lifted off his shoulders. And there's this scene, it disturbed people when they first heard about it, but when you watch the actual scene, it's a really profound scene. They play Under Pressure by Bowie and Queen, and Williams runs through the school, and he's running to the gym, and as he's running through the school into the gym, he's ripping his clothes off. Mm. By the time he gets to the gym, we got all Robin Williams on display. And he talks about at the beginning of towards the beginning of the movie how he used to dive, but he doesn't anymore. And Under Pressure's still playing, and he's on the diving board. And he looks down, and it's like a shame, like he's giving up. Like, so he starts to walk away. He's starting to walk off the diving board, but then he turns around, and he jumps off. And it's like this really, like...
The music starts to kick in, too.
It's a really poignant moment.
That was awesome.
So, despite how you feel about Bobcat Goldthwait's stand-up and his persona, as a writer, like, he wrote and directed Shakes the Clown, and that movie where that woman blows her dog. Mm-hmm. But, lately he's been, like, he did this in God Bless America, which... God Bless America kind of left a bad taste in my mouth.
I liked it.
Bobcat's really into this writing and directing thing now. Like, he really knows what he's doing.
He's more Bob Goldthwait now than Bobcat.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's still Bobcat in the credits, but...
Yeah. That's how people know him, obviously.
But, yeah, it's, and there's a subplot where he has the affair with the teacher, mm-hmm. and there's this funny moment where, they're having this affair behind everybody in the school's back. And then there's a scene where they finally start making out in the teacher's lounge in front of everybody, and there's this shot of one teacher handing another teacher a $10 bill. Stuff like that. But, yeah, it's a really, like, once you get past the extremely vulgar language and just the setup in general, it's a really moving movie and Robin Williams is, like...
He's on point.
It's one of his best performances.
Oh, easily.
And saying that about Robin Williams, all the great performances he has under his belt, that's really, like, his bar is really set high as far as great performances. And
Insomnia, 1 Hour Photo...
Dead Post Society, Good Morning Vietnam.
I just wanted to start you, and you can continue from there.
Good Will Hunting, Awakenings. This is at the top.
Absolutely.
And so, look, once again, it's only from 2009, so it's probably not too hard to find. Especially, like, online or something. Our next to last one is a movie nobody's heard of. Like, I guarantee nobody's heard of this. Because I'd never heard of it. When I tell people about it, they've never heard of it. It's Nicolas Cage again, and it's John Dahl's movie, Red Rock West. John Dahl is the director of Joyride. And this movie is awesome. Like, I didn't even know what it was about when I have these a lot. I didn't know what it was about when I first saw it. I just watched it. Mm-hmm. Because of the cast. Cage and, Lars Lindboyle's okay, but, it's Cage and Dennis Hopper, and not pictured, but, is a main character is J.T. Walsh, who was awesome. He was like the mayor in Pleasantville, and Jack Nicholson actually dedicated his Oscar win to As Good as It Gets to him. The plot is Cage is just this drifter. We don't know anything about him before this movie, and we never learn anything else about him. He's just this guy who's out in the middle of nowhere. And he comes into this town called Red Rock. It's in Wyoming. And he can't get out of it. Like, every time he gets out of Red Rock, somehow he manages to come back by a series of events. Mm-hmm. But he's in desperate need of money. Like, he's got to pay for gas, and the only thing in his wallet's a $5 bill. Ooh. And he has the opportunity. He goes into this place, and there's nobody in there, but the cash register's open. And this kind of tells you a little about his character. Like, the cash is right there in front of him, and he's looking at it, and he's thinking about it. But he doesn't take it, because he's not that kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, he goes into this bar. It's a diner/bar, and J.T. Walsh is behind the counter. And, he kind of leans in, and he says, "Are you here about the job?" And, of course, Cage says, "Well, I really need money. I really need a job." So he just says, yeah. Well, the job is to get, I can't remember how much money it is, but J.T. Walsh is hiring him to kill his wife, who's Lara Flynn Boyle. The, what do they call her in Wayne's World?
Psycho Hose Beast.
J.T. Walsh thinks that Cage is this hitman named Lyle from Dallas. That's what they call him through the whole movie, Lyle from Dallas.
Nice.
So he goes and he talks to Lara Flynn Boyle about it, and because he's a good guy, he lays the money down and he says, you need to be aware of the fact that your husband's going to pay somebody to kill you. And so there's a series of events that follows that. Now, J.T. Walsh is named Wayne. And the thing is he writes a letter, and he says to the sheriff of Red Rock, a guy named Wayne Brown is going to have his wife murdered.
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely must look into this, and he signs it anonymous. And so there's the guy that Lara Flynn Boyle was cheating on him with. Cage accidentally hits with his car and has to take him to the hospital. So sure enough, Cage is sitting in the hospital waiting to find out what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And the sheriff comes in. The sheriff is Wayne. So then the movie reminds me a lot of Breakdown, and I don't just say that because J.T. Walsh was also the villain in Breakdown. But then, just when you think that's too much, Dennis Hopper comes into town. Dennis Hopper is the real Lyle from Dallas. And he's ready to get paid.
Oh boy.
So everybody in the world wants to kill Cage. And they're all coming for him at the same time. They spelled Nicolas Cage wrong on the back here. They put an H in it.
Wow.
And this movie just goes off. Like, every 20 minutes, this movie takes a new turn. And you never see it coming. Like, the twists just keep coming and coming. And the movie just keeps going in these directions. You can never predict this movie. And that's what's awesome. This is like... It sucks that this movie is so not well known, because this movie is like... If it says, like, if you go to a screenwriting class and it says how to write a thriller, it would just be this movie on the wall. And there's also kind of an appearance by Dwight Yoakam as a truck driver that gives Cage a ride.
Nice.
But, yeah, I don't even want to say too much about it, because this movie just goes and goes, and just, like, you can never see what this movie's doing ahead of time, which is exactly what thrillers should do.
Mm-hmm.
And Hopper is great. Hopper is, like, his normal, like... Obviously, Hopper plays a villain so many times. Like, he says in the trivia, he was actually afraid that he'd be too much like Frank Booth from Blue Velvet if he played this part.
I can see that in the way he looks, too.
But, you know, he's Dennis Hopper. He made it work.
Yeah.
God, the world is wrong without him.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't want to, like... Yeah, like, there's this particular scene where he's in the passenger seat, and he's got the gun on Cage, he's making him drive.
Mm-hmm.
And they gotta do this thing where a train is coming, and they have to go over and ramp and get over the track before the train comes. And Hopper's just sitting in the passenger seat, like, screaming, like, out of excitement while this is going on. Wow. And this happens, and they escape the train, and he finally just stops screaming and goes, "Wow, you're a really good driver, aren't you?" But yeah, you just... All the way to the very end, you never see what this movie's doing ahead of time. They compare it to Blood Simple, but yeah, I could see that. So yeah, if by some... I don't know where you're going to come across this movie, but if you happen to really look into it, you can kind of tell it's from the director of Joyride too, because they both have that Joyride's a very intense movie too.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty unpredictable. So there's that. And we're finally on our last movie. This is one of my favorite movies in this pile. It's probably my favorite movie after Something Wild, which is coincidence because it's written and directed by John Waters. It's probably John Waters' most mainstream movie. Like it's his most accessible, and it's probably his most well known apart from Hairspray and Pink Flamingos. It's Serial Mom with Kathleen Turner. And you will see that this movie is so obscure that I wanted it so badly on DVD I had to get it in this pack with Nurse Betty and Very Bad Things and Neil LaBute's Your Friends and Neighbors. But Neil LaBute also did Nurse Betty. I wanted Serial Mom so badly. I already have Very Bad Things and Nurse Betty on DVD. I bought this just so I could own Serial Mom. And as you can see, I'm sure it's a black comedy. And this movie, like, Peggy Sue Got Married did this with a lot of people. This is the movie that made me fall in love with Kathleen Turner. I just love her in this movie. Like, I'm serial killing and all. I want her to be my mom. Like, she's just so great. And this is, despite the fact that it's accessible and mainstream, this movie is John Waters from beginning to end.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, and it's just like, it really plays with the gore. Like, it's satirical, but it's still like, Jesus, when it happens. Like, when she kills the guy in the back, like, Ricky Lake plays her daughter, and Matthew Lillard's back. Matthew Lillard plays the son, and Ricky Lake's being cheated on by this guy. So she goes into the bathroom with a fireplace poker of all things, and you can tell it's that satirical John Waters violence because she like the scene where they eat the cops in Pink Flamingos. She stabs this guy back here with the fireplace poker. And when she pulls the fireplace poker out, his entire liver is attached to it. And she's trying to, like, flick it off.
That's great.
And then there's, it's got so many great scenes. I can't even go through all of them. But, there's a running gag where, the next-door neighbor is, all the next-door neighbor did, we see it in a flashback, why this is happening. The reason is, they were at the supermarket, and she was going to have a parking spot, and this neighbor came in and got it right before she could pull in. So what she does is she's been harassing this neighbor. Like, the neighbor comes over, and she's like, I'm getting these horrific, harassing phone calls, and just, I'm getting death threats and letters in the mail, and I don't know who's doing it. And Kathleen Turner's like, oh, it'll be okay. That's horrible. We should call the police. This is absolutely horrible. And they talk to the cops about it, and she's like, I don't know anything, but this is just horrible. It's like, that woman is so nice. And the cops leave, and Kathleen Turner goes upstairs when nobody's around after everybody's left the house. And she dials the phone, and she's, waiting for it to ring. And then the neighbor answers, and Kathleen Turner says, is this the cocksucker residence?
That's awesome.
It's like, do you live on Fuck You Drive? I know it's Pussy Highway.
Very John Waters.
Oh man, but and this this goes on. That comes back a few times. But then there's it's actually in two parts. Like the first half is all the fun and the killing and all that. And the second half is when apparently it's a true story.
Of course.
The second half she goes on trial and it becomes a satire of fame. Not the movie Fame, but Fame in general.
Yeah.
Like, Matthew Lillard basically becomes her agent, and Suzanne Summers has a cameo as herself, because she's going to be playing Kathleen Turner's character in the movie. Like, they're, the guy that she killed with the fireplace poker, his brother comes into it, and he's pissed off, and he's talking to Matthew Lillard, and he punches him. He says, your mom killed my brother, and he's like, oh yeah, I know your brother, and he's like, well, if you want, I can work it out, and, we can work his character into the movie. And, of course, after the guy being pissed off, the guy's just like, yeah, my brother in a movie. And you can tell how dated the movie is, because he says, I wonder if Jason Priestley's available.
Oh, wow.
But
people watching these videos don't even know who Jason Priestley is.
Yeah, there's a great scene where it's like a fake out, where there's this, Matthew Lillard works at a video store, and he's hiding Kathleen Turner there. And the woman comes in, and she's renting Annie. And she doesn't rewind her tapes, and Matthew Lillard finally says, I gotta put my foot down, I gotta charge you for not rewinding this tape, and she just kind of brushes it off like a stupid thing. And of course, when they go to check on Kathleen Turner, she's gone. And she's gone to this woman's house. And in this woman's dining room is a giant leg of lamb, and it's got a giant kitchen knife beside it. And this woman, this is where it gets really John Waters. This woman has a weird relationship with her dog, and it's like really awkward, but she's watching Annie, and she's singing Tomorrow as the credits are coming up. And Kathleen Turner grabs this kitchen knife off the table, and she's coming up from behind her with the knife. And just as she's about to kill her, she kind of stops like she's reconsidering. And she looks at the knife, and then she goes back into the kitchen. She puts the knife down. She picks up the big-ass leg of lamb. Goes back into the living room and beats her to death with that. And then she's, after she's beaten her to death, and the TV is covered in blood, she hits the rewind button and looks at the dead body and screams, "Rewind!" Like, this movie is so insane, but it just keeps... It's just always funny from beginning to end, and Waters doesn't really tone down himself. He's not in NC-17 territory like Pink Flamingos or stuff like that, but, and it's not as, it's not as watered down as Crybaby, I guess you could say, or Hairspray, but he's right in the middle there with this movie. Like, when I watch this movie, it's when I want him to make more movies. Like, his last movie, has he had a movie since A Dirty Shame?
I don't think so.
See, that was almost like he was satiring himself, but satirizing or satirizing.
Yeah, it's satirizing.
Satiring. I don't know why I said that. But this yeah, like I said, this movie is very difficult to find because I had to find it by getting it in this pack. But as long as I have it, I don't care. Like, I used to watch it all the time, then I didn't watch it for a while, but now that I've watched it recently again, it's just, there's so much brilliance to it. So, yes, that and Something Wild are my favorite movies I went through today. So, I'll probably do this again at some point if I can figure out more movies that more people haven't seen. And I'm hoping you use this video to look around for these or try to find them on Netflix or online or something. And if you knew what all these were, good for you. We can be friends. But, yeah, so I'll try to do this again with more. It probably won't be as many as 16, but, whatever. I'm sure you don't care anyway. So, until we figure out what we're doing next, I think that's that.